All right, welcome to everyone, and thank you so much for joining our Zoom presentation, Food Allergy Counseling 101, Understanding and Supporting Clients with Allergies, with licensed therapist and food allergy counselor creator Tamara Hubbard. My name is Francesca Rose, and I am president of the Utah Food Allergy Network, or UFAN. Utah Food Allergy Network is a 501c3 nonprofit food allergy resource with a medical advisory board and was established in 2007. As president of UFAN and also as a parent of a food allergic child, I'm incredibly grateful that you are here and willing to learn how to support and be a resource to our food allergy community. As I advocate for those with food allergies in our state, I see a huge need for allergy-aware counseling resources. Personally, for about 15 years of my food allergy journey as a caregiver, I wasn't aware of the toll that food allergies was taking on me, my food allergic child, and the entire family. And then all of a sudden, I'm faced with a suicidal 15-year-old. I'm trying to find knowledgeable help. And the thought of having to train one more person about food allergies was super overwhelming. Having a list of local allergy-aware mental health professionals that already understand the food allergy mental health basics will be a valuable resource for helping our food allergy community navigate living with their food allergies in mentally healthy ways. So from my heart, we at Utah Food Allergy Network appreciate your attendance here as we work to raise awareness of the mental health needs of our Utah food allergy community and how you can be a valuable resource for us. Not only do we need you, but we can be a resource for you as well. If you have food allergic clients, please refer them to us at the Utah Food Allergy Network. We can both work to support their food allergy journey. And I will go ahead and share a contact slide here for you so you can have our contact information on that. So UFAN's mission is to provide outreach to the newly diagnosed and the community at large, offering support, promoting education, building awareness of the severity of food allergies and anaphylaxis, and advocating for positive change. UFAN provides several online forums for patients to share support, recipes and substitutions, and tips for handling social situations. We have regularly held food-free events at Easter and Halloween to help support food allergy families in Utah, and we host educational events to support our food allergy community and educate the community at large. If you are interested in volunteering with UFAN to help further our mission or donating to UFAN, please contact us at www.utahfoodallergy.org, and you can click on donate or on our volunteer page, and we will share links in the chat as well. So tonight's event is actually UFAN's third event this year as part of our mental health initiative, focusing our efforts on the mental health of Utah food allergy community and on creating better resources to help them navigate living with life-threatening food allergies in mentally healthy ways. We will share links in the chat to our two previous mental health Zooms that we held with Tamara earlier this year. One is called Understanding and Befriending Your Allergy Anxiety, and the other is Strategies for Living with Allergy Overwhelm. You're welcome to use these as a resource and recommend it to your food allergic clients. These also can be found on our main utahfoodallergy.org webpage. If you click on the blog link, those are listed permanently there, so you can access those as well or recommend clients there. A couple of quick business items. Utah Food Allergy Network would not be able to provide any of our services without the generous support of our incredible sponsors. We appreciate them and thank them for their support of the Utah food allergy community. This project was made possible through a community outreach award from FAIR, Food Allergy Research and Education. UFAN is also sponsored by Tanner Clinic, University of Utah Health, the Department of Dermatology and Immunology, Utah PTA, Special Needs, and Show Your Teal. You should have received links to our sponsors' websites in your confirmation email. I encourage you to look at their links and support them as they support our Utah food allergy community. And I just want to remind you that that there's going to be a Q&A at the end, but also I think Tamara will be allowing questions throughout, so this will be interactive. If you have specific questions as you're thinking about them and you want to just submit them in the chat, you can, and then we can make sure we don't miss them. This is also being recorded, and I will make the recording available for you to share with others in the mental health community. We appreciate you helping raise awareness of our food allergy community mental health needs, and thank you once again for joining us. I would like to introduce Tamara. Tamara is a licensed clinical professional counselor, Tamara Hubbard. She is a family therapy trained licensed therapist in private practice in the Chicago area, and we have some links that we will share in the chat specific for her. As the creator of the Food Allergy Counselor Directory and website, she has developed numerous internationally known allergy psychosocial resources, including the Food Allergy Counselor Directory, Exploring Food Allergy Families podcast, and therapeutic worksheets for allergic families and allergy patients. These are fabulous resources. Additionally, she started the Food Allergy Behavioral Health Network to help allergy-informed clinical therapy providers connect and strengthen the allergy counseling niche. And I am so grateful for her expertise and her willingness to speak with us today. And I will just turn the time right over to her.
Hi, everybody. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. A lot of familiar faces and names. So thank you guys for taking time out of what I'm sure is a busy evening to hear me speak. So this is in fact, I'm going to take these out. See if you can still hear me. This is bugging me. Can you guys still hear me? Is it better with, or are you guys okay? Awesome. Okay. I can't stand having those in anymore today. I've been seeing clients all day, so I had to take those out. So this is a topic that is pretty popular. I get a ton of emails, a ton of, is this even a clinical niche? I didn't know this was a niche, so I thought this was perfect. And when UFAN approached me about this, I was so excited. So I'm so glad you guys are here to join me. And hopefully there's many more that registered and can't make it live tonight, but can watch the playback. So I'm going to hop right in. As they said, if there's questions along the way, feel free to jump in, ask. If I miss it, I'll just have one of you guys flag me and ask the question. And then I'll answer questions at the end. All right, let's see if I can get this going here. Okay. All right, can you guys see that? Let me see. Yes. Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. So, and let me just move, because this gets in my way, the panel of faces. There we are. Okay. Those of you that don't know me, this is a little bit about me. She covered most of it. But I always add this in there for those that don't know me. I'm an allied healthcare member of the two major medical organizations for allergy and immunology in the United States. And I'm also listed on psychwire.com as an allergy counseling expert. So trying to drive that niche into the therapeutic space and not just the allergy and immunology space. Okay, so these are the objectives for the webinar that pretty much were covered in the description, but I just thought I'd tease them out a little bit more. So hopefully by the end of this, you'll walk away knowing why the allergy counseling niche is in demand, some key medical aspects, differences between food allergy anxiety and generalized anxiety disorder or generalized anxiety, common psychosocial factors impacting the stress, therapeutic goals when we work with these clients, what you might need or benefit from knowing in order to do this work. And if you're already an allergy informed therapist, how to market yourself. And then of course, I'll throw in some information about the food allergy counselor membership at the end. Okay, so again, there was a ton of data that I could have pulled from, and I was trying to get just a little snippet in this brief webinar. Again, I'm going over basics in this webinar. There is so much more to cover. So I was trying to pull out some of these data pieces that would really give you guys a good picture as to why this niche is here. And when I say that this niche is here, it's not a truly formalized niche, right? But if you think about diabetes and cancer and other medical conditions, once they kind of get up and going and established, there tends to be a support network of therapists and dietitians and, you know, nurses who are helping. And so that's what we're trying to drive this to be, is to be an official niche that has training and is recognized. So this gives you some data as to why this is needed and in demand. There are a ton of allergic individuals. 1 in 10 adults and 1 in 13 kids are allergic to foods. I also threw in some asthma data too, because although this is really focused more on food allergy counseling, I have the food in parentheses because really it's allergy counseling. A lot of times somebody with a food allergy also manages another allergic condition. So you might be working with asthma or EOE or a number of different conditions. So food allergy counseling is kind of a catch-all, but really what I mean is allergic counseling. There is a lot of mental health impacts, psychosocial impacts, stressors, quality of life impacts that are associated with a food allergy, and they're pretty under-recognized because not all allergists and allergy practices are screening for these things, and they're not even asking questions sometimes about how a food allergy impacts somebody's quality of life. There's bullying and teasing. I believe the data is that about 1/3 of kids with a food allergy reports being teased, and teasing can be anything from name calling to literally taking the allergen and waving it in their face or threatening with them. It could be covert bullying, like a teacher inadvertently or on purpose saying, hey, we can't do this activity because Johnny over there has a food allergy. So bullying is kind of like with a food allergy can cover a lot of ground. Parental overprotectiveness is a huge one. You can imagine, and we'll get to that in another slide, that there is a lot of anxiety for parents who have a child with a food allergy because their goal, as every parent's goal is to keep their child safe. And now we have a food and we eat food multiple times a day that could harm and be life-threatening to our child. So there's a correlation between parental overprotectiveness and the anxiety of the child. And then, of course, there's a lot of stress and anxiety with daily management because we have to avoid a threat of reaction at all times and navigate, kind of bob and weave all of these impacts on our quality of life. Again, just a snippet, but so much more to this. Okay. I had to cover this because this is a common misconception that when I have somebody asked to be on the food allergy counselor directory or become a food allergy counselor member, a lot of times somebody will say to me, oh, okay, I understand food allergies. It's, you know, when my stomach doesn't feel well, or, you know, I have a headache for 5 days, or, you know, my child has behavioral issues because of something that they ate. And I'm not saying that those things aren't quality of life impacting or problematic, but those, and again, I'm stepping outside of my scope here. This is the medical piece. And as therapists, we have to be very clear where our boundaries are, but I can talk about this as an allied healthcare member and refer you to more information that is from the medical providers. Again, there's a crossover, but that's not a food allergy. So what a food allergy is when your immune system interprets a food or a substance as a danger and it triggers a protective response, which can be life-threatening. And if that person were to have that allergen, that same allergen, every time it had that, they ingested that allergen, the body would have the same response because it literally sees it as a danger, right? So the way that we deal with food allergy is sometimes it's a wait and watch. It depends on a bunch of factors. You know, what are the symptoms? How many systems of the body are involved? How much do they ingest? All of that. But typically we treat with epinephrine, right? And even small amounts for some individuals, really tiny small amounts can trigger an anaphylactic reaction, which could be a life-threatening reaction. So you can tell why somebody who gets diagnosed with a food allergy suddenly gets this intense rush of anxiety because now they're surrounded by food multiple times a day. I mean, think about socially, everything we do involves food or drink or something, right? And so there's these risks associated with everything they do. A food allergy is not celiac disease, irritable bowel syndrome, food sensitivities, lactose intolerance, GI-based symptoms. Now, GI-based symptoms could be a symptom of a food allergy reaction, but those things in and of itself are not immune system based. So I wanted to just cover that. And if you want more information, the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma and Immunology and the American College of Allergy, Asthma and Immunology are great resources to get that medical information about food allergy. So let's jump into food allergy anxiety and generalized anxiety. And there was a recent study done, or recent research study that was done that was able to show that food allergy anxiety and generalized anxiety are two separate constructs. They're two separate things. And anyone who works in this space would be able to tell you the same thing, right? So of course they have overlap. Cognitive distortions, if you do CBT work, quality of life impacts, avoidance of things in life, right? But the difference between generalized anxiety and food allergy anxiety is that typically with food allergy anxiety, it's focused on specific fears or phobias. That could be, you know, fear of anxiety. I'm sorry, there is fear of anxiety, but fear of anaphylaxis, fear of death, fear of needles that are associated with blood draws that are at annual appointments, or more frequently if they're doing treatments, or skin testing. So it's typically focused on some kind of specific fear or fears. And if you start to talk to somebody with food allergy anxiety, you'll get to those core fears eventually. It's often related to or as a result of a specific event. So again, the diagnosis itself could trigger the anxiety. A recent interaction or recent reaction is a typical source of anxiety, because if they were comfortable navigating the world with food allergies and then they have this reaction, especially if they're not sure what caused the reaction or it was trace amounts, now suddenly everything feels scary again. And then also transitions. And what I mean by transitions are, if you think about ages and stages that kids go through, or adults even, right? They're constantly changing schools, they're going off to college, they're launching into adulthood, they're navigating, you know, new jobs. So there's all of these transitions. And so once you kind of get your confidence down managing food allergy, and then you go into a new transition, yeah, that's a lot of unknown and uncertainty that you've got to navigate. The important thing is, just with like generalized anxiety, low to moderate levels can actually be helpful. What we think about anxiety typically is that it's a bad thing, and no emotion is a bad thing. How we handle it, how we cope with it, what we do with it, what actions it you know pushes us to take, that's where the problems typically happen. And then the high levels of food allergy anxiety typically lead to maladaptive coping and counterproductive actions. And so that would be over avoidance of behaviors, avoiding restaurants, avoiding travel, restrictive eating patterns, restrictive living, repetitive safety behaviors that impact daily living. I wanted to highlight that I said fears are not irrational, because I have had patients and community members tell me that they've gone to a therapist and been told that their fear of an anaphylactic reaction or food allergy related anxiety are irrational fears. And nothing is going to shut a patient down more, a food allergic patient, than telling them their fear and anxiety is irrational. It is absolutely not irrational, but it can be too elevated to achieve what I'll show you in a future slide, is this balance between quality of life and anxiety. Any questions on this one? Okay. So again, too much to put on one slide. So my husband would look at this and go, you already have way too much on this slide, but I tried my best to kind of get the key ones. What I talked about before is how there's a lot of quality of life impacts. Okay, so these are some of the factors that are going to impact the anxiety and stress levels for somebody who is either parenting a child of or is managing a food allergy. There's risk tolerance levels, right? So let's look at a family. I'm trained in family systems. So I'm thinking, okay, how does mom handle this, or dad, or mom and mom, grandma and grandpa? They all might have different comfort levels with risk tolerance, right? Dad may be way more willing to push the limits and mom may be like, I don't want any risk, right? So that could be a stressor. There's the risk perception. What is actually risky and what is perceived risky, right? If we're super anxious all the time about a food allergy, and a lot of our patients are, then they're going to overestimate risk and say everything is risky, and they're going to underestimate their ability to deal with things. So that impacts quality of life and anxiety and stress. Child's age and stage of development, the parents of younger kids are going to be doing a whole lot more to manage the anxiety than the kids who get older and take over responsibility, right? So it's all on them. That's a lot more stress. Parental overprotectiveness, we talked about that being a factor. Trust in others' ability to keep a child safe, right? Now you've got to turn your child over to a babysitter or to school or to college or to the world. And, do you trust others to understand your child's food allergy or your own food allergy, right? You put trust in people at the restaurants who are making your food. Do you trust that they heard what you said about your allergy and are taking precautions in the kitchen? Child's level of allergy management self-efficacy. Again, this correlates with anxiety, because if we have a lot of overprotectiveness and anxiety from the parents, then the child is not going to be as easily able to learn self-efficacy and learn skills. Feeling invalidated for their food allergy concerns. A lot of those that are managing food allergies are kind of pushed off to the side and said, "Up, you're just being overcautious, and what are you so afraid of?" Right? So that's going to impact stress levels. Lack of allergy support from family and community. That's a big one, right? If you don't have a support group to turn to, or an underserved communities, they may not have access, and this is in another box down below, access to safe foods and medications. That's huge. Your fear and anxiety and stress levels are going to be increased because you don't have access to the things that you need to keep you safe and educated about your food allergy. There's fear of bullying. We covered that before. And then, of course, there's trauma associated a lot of times with a food allergy reaction, especially if it's anaphylactic. So then you carry that through, and that's a fear and impacts your stress going forward. This might be one of my favorite slides ever. This picture I try to throw into almost every presentation that I give to various populations, but this is from a research study, and I've put the information down below, and it's called the Goldilocks principle. And if you think about Goldilocks and the Three Bears, right, or that old nursery, well, it's not a nursery rhyme, it's a story, right, where she's trying to find the just right chair. Well, that's exactly what we do as therapists, or even allergists and PAs and RNs and everyone who's working with food allergic patients. We're really trying to support and get them to the middle of that bell curve, right? That just right balance between what you'll see as quality of life and food allergy related anxiety. If they're, not taking enough avoidance and precautions and taking it seriously enough, maybe they don't even carry an EpiPen or epinephrine auto-injector at all, then you may see more frequent reactions. And eventually that might push them over to the other edge, which is where they're now so hypervigilant that their quality of life is just sort of getting smaller and smaller. They're over avoiding things, and now they have debilitating stress and anxiety. So we're really trying, this is the overall goal with our work with these food allergic clients, is getting them to the middle of this bell curve, this just right balance. And what I'll say, and it's very important, is that's going to look different for every person and every family, right? Somebody may need, because of their situation or their community or a whole bunch of variables that we have to, as therapists, find out as we're working with them, need to take more precautions. And somebody else may say that's overcautious, whereas for that person, that's their just right balance. So I like to say we're trying to find a just right balance for everybody, and that's somewhere in that bell curve, but it's going to look different. So this is some of the potential therapeutic focuses in food allergy counseling, right? We're going to be working with them on skill building. And some of this, again, will go into a medical realm. And so we constantly have to walk that fine line of what's within our scope and what's outside of our scope. And anytime we feel like it's outside of our scope and it's getting too much focused on the medical piece, we need to be coordinating with our patients' allergist or allergy practice, their healthcare professionals, and we need to be having conversations with them about that. One thing I'm going to say on this slide, because I might forget in a future slide, is that sometimes in this work, we're doing exposure therapy so that we can create fear ladders to work up little by little, exposing them to things that make them uncomfortable and helping them with coping tools to get through it so that they can increase their quality of life instead of keeping it smaller. As therapists, we should never, ever, ever be doing exposure therapy with the person's allergen. I'm just going to say that right there because if I forget to say it later, I'll kick myself. That's outside of our scope, right? And I say that because I have heard of that happening where a therapist has done exposure therapy and they have said, okay, great, let's work towards getting closer to your allergen and then holding your allergen and then no. That is what the allergist would be doing if they so choose to do that. That's not something we would do. So going back to what we would do, skill building work, right? We're doing what we typically do with our patients, helping them learn calming, grounding, coping strategies for the anxiety and stress they're feeling. We really need to work with these patients on managing anxiety and unpredictability because we know that unpredictability is a huge part of anxiety. And there's a lot of unpredictability when you're navigating life with a food allergy, right? We cannot control everything as much as we want to minimize risks. We have to help them risk evaluate and figure out their tolerance to risk. Again, that might need a conversation with their allergist to understand their specific allergy profile. Balancing that fear and quality of life, really exploring what it is that's pushing them over to that hypervigilance and over avoidance. We have to help them self-advocate and learn to be self-efficacy, especially teens, right? We've got kids who are about to launch into their worlds ahead, whether it's work or college or away from the house. They need to speak up. And if you have clients who are shy or who maybe haven't had a lot of chance to practice that might be hard for them. So helping them practice, build that skill, and then just build competency and confidence in their ability to manage food allergy. And in order to build that confidence, they have to build competence. And one thing that is very hard for food allergic clients is to realize that they have to step outside of their comfort zone in order to build that competence and confidence. So baby steps, like what about Bob? Baby steps with them to get outside their comfort zone, grow, and show themselves that they can do this even with a food allergy. There's going to be transitions and systems work. Again, key transition times for those with food allergies would be just similar to the ages and stages across a lifespan as well. But initial diagnosis is a huge time of anxiety and overwhelm. Key transitions through school, ages and stages, work transitions, moving, post-reaction usually typically requires some trauma support. And then there's family systems adjustments because maybe dad approaches it differently than mom, and grandma and grandpa and older generations don't get it when they babysit, and maybe there's a cultural component to it too. We typically hear from grandparents or the parents we're working with or the adults we're working with will say, well, my parents or my grandparents said, we didn't have food allergies when we were younger. And, that's a whole nother conversation. Yes, it was just under-recognized and diagnosed, but they were there. And then allergy parenting, helping parents get through all of those stages of parenting. And then we also want to help them with education, knowledge, and support. So making sure that they're finding reputable allergy information sources, locating allergy support groups like UFAN, and then communicating with their allergists and healthcare providers. You'd be surprised, well, maybe not, maybe you shouldn't assume that you'd be surprised, but sometimes patients will come in and say, I don't want to reach out to my allergist in between session or in between my annual appointment because I don't want to bug them with stupid questions. And so it's sort of encouraging them that there are no stupid questions, that you need to reach out, especially if those questions and uncertainty are leading to increased anxiety and impacts on quality of life. So it might be helping them figure out what kinds of questions do you need to be asking your allergist and allergy team. And then the other one I didn't put on there for education and knowledge and support work is there are a whole lot of online support groups and social media accounts that have to do with food allergy and allergic disease. One of the things in the therapeutic work that we do is, again, to assess where they're getting their information. We need to understand where they're getting their information. And if a lot of their information is coming from online support groups or social media accounts, that's probably something worth talking about with these patients because, again, online support groups are wonderful. They're wonderful places to build connections, to feel heard and understood, to be emotionally validated, to see how people navigate things. But they need to really be getting the basis of their information from their allergist and from reputable sources. Those are anecdotes usually in those groups. There's no doctors who are moderating what's being said and told, and no therapists who are in there usually saying this is a therapeutic skill to get through the anxiety. So really, if your patients are getting information from online support groups, there's some work to be done there as well, or mainly getting it from there. So another common question that I get is, well, what therapeutic modalities are used in food allergy counseling? Well, again, any and all. It really just depends on what your treatment goals are. I've highlighted or I've bolded the ones that are most commonly used that we hear about people using, mostly cognitive behavioral. Obviously, everyone's heard of probably CBT. That's the most commonly used. And when the studies are done on the psychosocial impacts and the therapeutic interventions, typically they're looking at CBT kind of interventions, CBT information for patients, and seeing how CBT helps patients with allergies manage their anxiety. I personally, in my work, which right now my work is primarily with parents, allergic parents, I use acceptance and commitment therapy almost exclusively, and I mix in my family systems, and sometimes I'll pull in some CBT and exposure. It's kind of depends on the situation, but acceptance and commitment therapy, I think, really works well for parents and caregivers. And that is also like cognitive behavioral. It's evidence-based. There's a ton of research out there that shows that just like CBT, and it's a cousin of CBT, they're related, that it does a lot of wonderful work with those that are managing anxiety and medical conditions in parents, which is a perfect fit here. So exposure therapy or exposure and response prevention is really useful for specific phobias and fears. Again, that's, if you guys are in the therapeutic fields, you probably know what this is, but basically we're working little by little up ladders, exposing them to things that they're uncomfortable about. Again, not the allergen, but helping them to decrease their anxiety and increase their competence and confidence in navigating it. EMDR, I'm not trained in that, but I know that people have said that they felt that that was really useful for trauma, especially trauma related to anaphylaxis. And family systems and play therapy obviously makes sense to be used in this niche too. So what knowledge and training do you need for food allergy counseling? Well, again, we're kind of paving the way here. We're trailblazers. We are, making it happen in real time. We are building the plane as we're flying it. So there are no training programs at your colleges and universities at this point. Probably one of the closest things would be health psychology or counseling, or some kind of program or internship that allows you to do any kind of health work, whether it's at the hospital setting or at a doctor setting, because that mixes that medical and psychological and psychosocial pieces together. But at a minimum, to be able to do this work and feel good about the work you're doing, you need to have obviously the clinical psychology and counseling training and licensure. No offense to coaches. There are places for coaches, but coaches should not be doing food allergy counseling. If a coach says they're doing food allergy counseling, that's a red flag. It's not the same thing. Solid understanding of medical aspects associated with food allergy and anaphylaxis. Again, those are key things to know. Solid understanding of food allergy, mental health, and psychosocial impacts and burdens. So really familiarizing yourself with what might show up at different ages, stages across the lifespan for somebody managing a food allergy, and what kind of support and therapeutic guidance they might need. General allergy management guidelines and emergency action plans. It's important to understand what are the doctors telling our patients to do to manage this food allergy, and what are they supposed to do with an emergency action plan. It's also important to know socioeconomic factors influencing allergy management. That's huge, right? If your patients can't have access to epinephrine autoinjectors, that's a problem. And that's going to impact the work that you're doing, because their anxiety levels are probably going to be much higher. Daily food allergy management tasks. And again, there's a lot that goes into daily management of a food allergy. And then knowing obviously what the top 9 allergens are, and a little bit about them is important to know too. What's also helpful to know is to understand oral food challenges and oral immunotherapy treatment like OIT or SLIT. The reason is because a lot more people are getting treatments. And again, I would kick myself if I didn't say treatment is not a cure. It does not make the food allergy go away. It helps to give a little bit more of a buffer zone, so that if they have an accidental exposure, or in some cases eat a decent amount of their allergen, they're not going to have a reaction, or as intensive a reaction, or anaphylaxis. But there's a lot more, especially younger kids, parents and younger kids who are going that route. So it's important to understand that that triggers a lot of anxiety as well, even just trying to make the decision about whether or not to receive treatment. And so knowing about that these days is really helpful in this work too. And then of course, family systems and parent-child dynamics, because there's going to be some of that at play here too, if you're working with kids, teens, or parents. Useful training and experience, health psychology I mentioned, and counseling. That's really could be a useful foray into this. Experience with chronic health and life impacting diagnosis, whether that's personal or it's in a training capacity. Many of us that are in this niche tend to have some kind of connection. I myself am a parent of a child with a peanut allergy. My child has been in a peanut patch trial. My child has been he's currently doing SLIT, sublingual immunotherapy. I've seen him anaphylax. We've given him epinephrine. Doesn't mean you have to go through all of that to do this work, but it certainly gives you a really good bird's eye view of what somebody's going through if you deal with it yourself. So a lot of us in this space tend to have some kind of connection, but not all of us. Some of us truly just have an interest in this space and want to support these families and individuals. Allergic disease webinars and trainings, the QuadAI, I hate saying the whole thing, the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, we call it QuadAI, and the American College of Allergy and Asthma and Immunology, the college, they offer some, information to the public, and they might have some trainings, or some of the organizations I'm going to mention on the next screens would be able to offer some of that information just for some basic knowledge about food allergy and allergic disease. And then stay tuned in 2023, the food allergy counselor is hopefully going to be expanding with workshops in this area. So sources of reputable food allergy information, helpful for us to know, especially if we're working with these patients, so that we can refer them. Again, I already mentioned the college and the QuadAI. Some psychosocial quality of life and daily management information sources. The food allergy counselor, again, has a ton of stuff on there. FAIR has a ton of information, has a blog, has a teen group for allergic teens that's run by the phenomenal Melissa Engel, who's a psychology graduate student herself and manages Allergies. Food Allergy Canada, I know I'm in the US, but I love their website. I love their information. I actually like Anxiety Canada as well. I don't know, I like the Canadian resources. I just like what they put out there. So Food Allergy Anxiety has some great stuff, and Kids with Food Allergies is another one that I would say, because they have forums and they have a lot of stuff to support families. Follow these individuals on social media. Dr. Dave Stukas is a good friend of mine. He is out there trying to fight misinformation, one tweet at a time. Dr. Miriam Hanna puts out some wonderful stuff daily, just like to clarify things about allergies, misconceptions. Allergic Living magazine has wonderful information. They have an online digital magazine that you guys can subscribe to or read online with articles. And then the Food Allergy Counselor as well. Okay, so let's just say you're already in this space, right? You understand that allergy counseling is a niche. You understand enough about food allergy and allergic disease to enter into this space. And now you're doing this work or starting to market yourself to get these patients to come to you so you can support them. These are the things that I would recommend at a minimum. And when I was writing this slide, I thought, oh, people are going to roll their eyes when I put, we'll list allergy therapy services on your website. I can't tell you how many times somebody who does this work does not list that on their website. And then somebody who has a food allergy is going to go, even if they come from the food allergy counselor directory and they know that that person's on there and has been vetted to understand food allergy and allergic disease, and they go to that website and they see that there's no mention of allergies or anything to do with allergic disease, I don't know that they're going to pick up the phone and call you. So at a minimum, please, I would recommend putting something, whether it's in your drop-down menu bar or just somewhere as a listed service. Be descriptive when highlighting your allergy therapy services, right? Who do you work with? Are you working with kids? Are you only working with teens and older, adults, the parents? What are you going to help them do? Are you going to help them find a better quality of life? Are you going to help them manage their allergy anxiety? What is it going to look like when they've done work with you, when they walk away? How is this work going to be helpful? Be descriptive so that they go, oh my gosh, yeah, I want to work with you on that. And then if you're a food allergy counselor member, there's a badge that allows you to put on there like a Psychology Today badge that tells people that you are on the directory. So obviously understand food allergy. Network with allergists, allergy practices, hospital-based allergy clinics, local and state allergy support groups like UFAN, school districts, preschools, and other food allergy counselor, food allergy behavioral health network members if you join the network. And then think outside of the box, right? Do lunch and learns. Go to your pediatrician offices nearby and say, look, can I meet with your staff and bring some lunch and talk about allergy counseling? And you'll probably get a few of them go, I didn't know this was a niche. And oh my gosh, this makes total sense. And this is so great. Reach out to allergy practices and say, hey, can I give you guys a blurb each month for your patient newsletter or email to say, something about allergy counseling or managing allergy anxiety? Offer to run patient education webinars or put some handouts together for your allergy practices on things having to do with allergy anxiety, quality of life, coping skills, right? Think outside of the box about how you can help allergic patients through these avenues, not just through them coming to find you on your website. Couple last slides here. The food allergy counselor membership is basically there's two membership options. There's the professionals, those of us who are already licensed or have our provisional licensure and are doing the work out in private practice or whatever setting we're in. These are the membership benefits. That's an old slide. The data is much higher now. I think the other day when I was looking, in 6 weeks, the directory was shared over 2,000 times. So I mean, it's out there. If you build it, they will come. And I'm not getting referral fees. This is not a referral network. I'm not getting a percentage or anything. It's a membership program where you get all these benefits. You can write for the Food Allergy Counselor blog and that gets promoted so your name gets out there. You can come join peer consultation groups where we monthly talk about this work as therapists doing this work. And you get listed on the directory that more and more people know about and are coming to find a therapist. And let's stay in touch. I am a chatter. I'm always up for a chat, a tweet, a DM, an email. So if you have questions or you just want to follow the stuff that's being put out there. And then there is a new allergy counseling zone email. I literally just started it last month. It's probably at this point going to be monthly because I also do a food allergy counselor corner weekly email that sends out mindset tips and life and allergy anxiety tips for those managing it, or anyone else who wants to subscribe to it. So this for now is going to be a monthly email, but it really is going to eventually go into some more details about this work. So if you're interested in it, I would say at least sign up for that one, but you can certainly sign up for both emails, and that can be found on the homepage of the Food Allergy Counselor. And then I gave out a coupon code UFAN10 for 10% off of clinical worksheets or personal use worksheets. So I have two different versions for people who would like to buy them for themselves to use, or to use and copy and read and distribute to their patients. And then clinical forms. I've also developed psychosocial intake forms for allergic clients to get all that really good, deep information that helps us create our treatment goals. And that's all I've got for you tonight. I know I zoomed through it, but this is really just an overview, and I'm hoping to do a lot more training that goes deeper.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tamara, for sharing that with us. You have so many fabulous resources that I just want everyone to know about them. And I wish that I would have had them earlier in my food allergy journey, but hopefully we can help others. And thank you all for joining us and for being a part of this conversation and for being willing to help improve the food allergy journey for others. And we appreciate it so much. Once again, if you want to reach out to Utah Food Allergy Network, we're at www.utahfoodallergy.org, and you can access those videos that Tamara has already done for us, and we will put those links in the chat again, that you can refer to for your patients to look at as well. And if does anybody have any questions for Tamara before we end this? If you want to just unmute yourself and ask it, you may go ahead and do that.
Or
I don't,
drop it in the chat box, or
I'm,
comments, questions, chit chat, whatever.
I see really enjoying the newsletters. The newsletters are super
Oh,
informative.
well,
Uh,
thank you.
Another resource shared here from Australia, the Australian National Allergy Council.
Awesome.
So we appreciate people participating here. I think that that's all I have. I don't have any questions here in the chat for you. So
That's
once
okay.
again, once again, thank you all for joining us, and I will make this recording available for you to share with others, and hopefully we can expand resources for the food allergy community to live
Yeah, and
healthy.
share this with anyone you know that you think might be curious about joining this niche. Again, a lot of people, even who manage allergies and are clinically trained in behavioral health, sometimes they just don't put those two pieces together until somebody says that it is a space that they can work in. So if you think somebody might want to know that this exists, go ahead and share that information for sure.
And it's much needed in the food
It
allergy
is.
community. I see it in my own life and in the people that I advocate for. So thank you again, and hopefully we can raise that awareness and help for them. And thank you so much again for being here. And I'm going to go ahead and end this.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night.